Hi, welcome to Will Henry's workshop. I am, of course, Will Henry. So I've been gone for about 6 weeks as we towed our trailer down to Palm Bay, Florida and back, a round trip of about 7,000 miles. We do this fairly often, and it's always a bit of an adventure. This year was no exception. We had a couple of flat tires on the trailer. Some bad weather, and that's what you get when you travel in the wintertime, isn't it? And the other thing that it really seems to me like every time we drive down there, it's uphill both ways. Now, we start out at about 2,700 feet elevation, and I think we go down to about 50 feet, but it seems like we're going uphill most of the time. And same thing coming back. And the wind's always in our face, so it's maybe nature's trying to tell me something. But anyway, we made it back okay, and so now I'm back in the shop. Now I'd actually recorded a few videos that I was going to put on while I was gone, and then it turned out there was something wrong with each and every one of them, so they didn't get recorded and or didn't get uploaded. And so we're kind of starting fresh. This is the first one of the new year. So the first job I'm going to undertake is a simple rebarreling job. But on a kind of a different action. This is get it here. It's a McMillan Model G30, and you don't see them every day. It's a controlled feed. As you can see, it's got not a long Mauser type extractor, but it does have an extractor under which the rim of the cartridge goes as it's fed in, making it a controlled feed. And it's got a good big hook on that extractor, and all in all, not a bad looking system. It has a stationary ejector that's mounted in the receiver, works like a Model 70, and so there you go. With this, and this particular one is in a stock that appears to be much the same as a Eccles Legend stock, and it looks just like the one I have. So anyway, it's a decent stock. It's weighted, so it's fairly heavy, and which makes sense in that this action is generally used for fairly heavy cartridges. It's a big action. The magazine box is over 3.8 inches long, and the loading port is 3.5 inches long, so it's made to handle big, long cartridges. It's the same diameter as a Remington 700, and built much the same thread. The recoil lug is sandwiched between the receiver and the barrel, just like on a 700. So now this was built, I had initially barreled this, oh gosh, let's see if 12 years ago. 12 years ago in 330 Dakota, and the owner has stated that Dakota brass is a little difficult to get, and I imagine it is, and so he's going to rebarrel it to 375 Ruger, and which will be a little easier. And this will be actually a very nice action for the 375 Ruger, which is also a fairly big cartridge, and it's a good cartridge, the 375 Ruger, slightly larger in capacity than the 375 H&H, and in fact, it's the cartridge that would have been made if Newton's cartridges had been adopted by a major manufacturer like Winchester, back before the First World War or just after. He had a 375 based on the 30 Newton case, which would have been very similar to the 375 Ruger and would have been identical in performance to the 375 H&H. And just think if Winchester or somebody had adopted those cartridges back then, there's a whole raft of cartridges that we would have never seen because they wouldn't have been necessary. But anyway, the 375 Ruger, similar to the 375 Newton, is a good rimless cartridge, and kind of deserves to be a little more popular than it is. But when you're going up against an established cartridge like the 375 H&H, it's pretty hard to take over the market. And but be that as it may, this is going to be a 375 Ruger. Barreling this is just almost exactly the same as barreling a Remington 700. The breech is similar with a counterbore barrel for the nose of the bolt. A little more clearance necessary for the extractor. Yeah, as I said, the threads and everything are the same. So a very straightforward operation. I'll show the setup and the chambering. The only thing that's difficult with these at all, with a job like this, is just that the cartridge is long, so it takes longer to do it. It's a lot harder to do something like this just in time than it is to do a BR or a PPC or even a 308. But anyway, with I'll get set up here and we'll get started. I'm going to pause you for a moment. Well, here we are back again, and I've got the barrel set up. And like I say, it's as usual. We set up and dial in at the breech end on the inside of the barrel, and I dial to the top of the lands, and these are running within probably a couple ten thousandths, so that's good enough. At the muzzle end, I again use the see if I can get you over here. I use the Bushnell Arbor in there because I've demonstrated that over and over again to be pretty reliable and definitely accurate enough for dialing in the muzzle end. So anyway, there it is. Now you'll notice on the chuck, as usual, just in case anyone's forgotten, I use a piece of brass wire between the jaws and the barrel, and this allows the barrel to pivot for alignment, and so that I'm not bending the barrel when I'm moving it, and it also protects the barrel a little bit from the chuck jaws. And so anyway, there we are. This is set up now, and as I said, there's just about nothing more straightforward than rebarreling a Remington, and this McMillan is close enough to a Remington that it's more or less the same thing. The dimensions I'm cutting to on the trusty boogie board there, and so I can just hang that up here, and I used to write everything on the wall, but then the wall got so dirty and had so much written on it, I was getting hard to keep track, so this I had to change my ways. But anyway, now we can go ahead and get started on this. So there we go. So I'll start by facing this off, and then I'll mark it for length. Now typically, I just I'll measure with a caliper, and as long as my tenon length is pretty close to what I want, I'm happy. But a person can do it a little more precisely if he wants, and I'll show you how. Just go in here. First we'll face this. Still a little mark there, so we'll go just a little further. So in order to cut our length, now our length is going to be 0.945. So as I said, I'll often just take a caliper and put on here and run my tool up against it. And that generally gets you within about 5/1000ths of an inch. But if a person wants to be a little more precise, and there's no reason not to be, I guess, you can take and swing your compound around to 0. Set it in place. Like that. Well, 0 our feed here. So now I can just go up and touch. There we go. And then I run this in 945. So well, looks like I'm going to have to back off and do that again because I didn't leave myself enough travel to go 945. So back off a little. 0 again. Touch again. Okay, and that's 945. There we go. So, and to verify that, yeah, there we have it, 945. So, that's kind of proper machine shop practice if you're wanting to establish a length. Then, this is the pain in the neck part, I swing back around to 29.5. And lock down. And Bob's your uncle. So this is just tedium, so you can watch that cut for a minute, but then I'm going to pause you, bring it back in when there's something happening. Okay, so there the tenons turned to diameter, and so now I'm ready to thread. Now the McMillan tenon, like I say, is the same diameter and so on as the Remington, 1 1/16 inch. However, McMillan chose to make their threads 18 threads to the inch rather than 16, and that's why it's always a good idea to check ahead of time rather than finding that out halfway through the job. And in this particular case, I knew that, but somebody that hasn't worked with one before might not. And so anyway, this is 1 1/16 inch by 18 threads per inch, which I think is might be the same as the Savage, but I'm not sure on that. I know it's the same as my Schilling VGA was. So this is 18. Squirt a little oil on the lead screw. I'm going to slow that down just a smidgen. Generally, you get a little smoother cut if you run as fast as you can, but that's just a little faster than I care to thread at. I'll set it at 240 RPM, and it should be fine. A little bit of lube here. Let's see where we're at. It's probably fine, but I'm going to just take one more pass without advancing the tool, just to see. There, that just kind of took the spring out of it. See where we're at. There, that's a little better. No shake, but it screws all the way on easily, so that's what we're after. So now, of course, the next step is the chambering. I'm going to pause again while I get set to do that, and then I can go ahead and record that. Okay, back again, and ready for the drilling operation. Now with these, with the big cartridges like this, I generally don't bore. I'll just simply rough with the drill, and unless the drill runs out any appreciable extent, I won't worry about boring. We'll see what happens here. So there we go. Now back the carriage out of the way here. Get rid of some chips. I'm going to have to get my compressor set up and blow that out. There's too much gunk in there. So once again, so there we go. In checking where the drill had gone, that's showing a total indicator run out of about 0.02 of an inch. So that hole is offset by 1/1000 of an inch at the back. So I am going to go in and just bore a 1/4 inch or so straight in, just to give the reamer a good start. And then once it's cut enough, the body of the reamer will support it, and it should run true. So we'll see how that works out. Let's stick our boring bar in here. Okay, now we're going to speed it up. Yes?
Are you getting hungry?
Yes.
Would you like, we've got a little bit of salmon that we can eat too, but would you like a piece of pork?
Sure.
And what would you like with it? You want some more rice or some noodles or something?
Noodles would be good, yeah.
Okay, I'll see what I have.
So there, that's much better. And so now I'll be able to set up and start reaming. We'll just see how things go. Now once I've bored that little bit at the rear of the chamber, as I said before, now the reamer gets a good start in a true line, and if the rest of the where I drilled is off by 1,000th, the reamer will go ahead and clean it up concentric anyway because it's supported at the rear. Until I could feel the throat section start to cut a little. And I'll just clean and from there. I'm going to move the poor little movie board here so it doesn't get too greasy. Once again, I'm going to have to shift you around here. There we go. So that I can get around here. We're going to have to do some more movement here. Brace yourselves. Nice clean cut. And again, the 375 Ruger being a modern cartridge, the taper is very minimal, and quite frankly, I'd like to see just a little more taper. Most of these cartridges are tapering a little less than 10 thousandths per inch total, and I'd rather see them taper just about twice that much, because it generally reams a nicer chamber, and also the cartridges extract a little easier and feed a little better in my estimation, but that's not what everybody is going for these days, so I just live with it. Well, here we are, and as you can see, the camera's mounted up behind the lathe, so you can kind of see things a little better. Now I've almost completed this chamber, and in fact we're down to the last cut. And I just thought I'd mention a couple of things. On this particular barrel, this reamer has been quite grabby as we're reaming. It's got a tendency to grab, almost feels like it's going to chatter or something. But anyway, and a lot of times when this happens, I suspect it's just small variations in the makeup of the steel in the barrel, or perhaps the hardness of that particular blank. This reamer, this is the first stainless barrel this reamer's cut. All the others have been chrome moly, and I never experienced that with this reamer before, but I am on this one. Now, as far as chamber finish goes, you can see just a little bit of variation in the surface finish, but it's not. You can't feel anything with the scribe. There's no real tool marks, and I think just a swipe with the Scotch-Brite, it'll be gone, or it may just disappear with the last cut. Now, right now, I have to cut my headspace measurement is 1.004, and as usual, I'll cut to 1.002 to allow 0.02 of an inch for compression of the recoil lug and stretch on the threads and so on and so forth. So that's what we'll do. So that means that right now I believe I'm at 1.015. Just double check that. Well, this says 1.017, so let me just make sure I don't have a chip caught there or anything. In fact, I'll person doesn't want to get an erroneous reading, so okay, 1.016. So to take it down to 1.002, I have to cut 14 thousandths of an inch. So that's what we'll do, and like I say, we'll just be very careful to minimize any grabbing, so it doesn't pick up a chip and mar the chamber. Now, another thing I'm going to mention here is that at the last on this chamber, I removed the center from the tailstock, and I put a pusher in here that allows the reamer to move a little bit. And that's only because with the very long cartridges, I can't reach clear up to the throat area to indicate. So I'm indicating about 5/8 of an inch back from where the throat is. So just in case there's some run out, I like to give it room to move. And on this one, there's no sign that it's running out at all, but it doesn't hurt to use the pusher. Anyway, so here we go. Using my usual new clear rigid cutting oil, which has always worked well, so the grabbiness I don't think comes from that. Let's So I'll feed it in very, very slowly, but you can see, even so, the the wrench is bouncing just a little bit more than it would normally, and so that's what I've been watching for. Let it dwell for a couple of turns, and there we go. So let's see what we got. Well, now the finish looks great, so we managed to fix that okay. But this is the thing with reamers and barrels. There's always some variation, and so when a person runs into that, you want to try and diagnose your problem early on. And in this case, like I say, I suspect it might be barrel steel, but also this reamer is cutting more on one edge than on the others. And well, actually there's two edges that seem to be doing the bulk of the cutting. And in that case, if it really felt like that was the issue, then I might hone those edges back just a little bit to bring the others more into play. But I didn't think that that was appropriate here, so I didn't do it. And so that this reamer still has all the factory edges on it. So let's see how close we came to our final dimension here. Yeah, it looks very nice now. And there we are, we're at precisely 1.002, which is exactly where I wanted to be. And so Bob's your uncle. Now the next step on this is going to be to cut the counterbore for the nose of the bolt. And as I'd mentioned before, the breeching system here is kind of like a Remington, but with a much shallower counterbore. I really think, if I had been designing this action, and keep in mind I was not, I would have wanted to maybe place the lugs a little further back on the bolt so that I had more of the nose of the bolt to counterbore into the breech into the barrel. And in fact, if you had a 1/4 inch, that wouldn't hurt my feelings any. And the reason for that is, now this one isn't bad because the extractor is held captive inside the lug here and so on. But by having the deeper counterbore with an extractor that could potentially jump ship, it keeps it up in there. And also with the controlled feed, if you have your counterbore deep enough that the bolt face is up inside the counterbore, it kind of helps a little bit to seal gas in. Now, mind you, when you have an extractor cut, pre-64 Winchester type extractor cut here, gas is going to come out through that cut anyway and right into the left-hand locking lug raceway. So this action isn't going to seal no matter what you do, and it's going to vent. And so if you're venting gas, then you have to make a provision for that. And this bolt sleeve also does a good job, though, of protecting the shooter's face in the event of a case failure. But of course, the other thing is, if you just don't load too damn hot, you won't have any case failures. So anyway, now see if I can't. There we go. Now, to cut the counterbore, we'll pivot the compound around to 0 again. Lock it down. And there we are. And I'm going to switch to a different boring bar, and with that being kind of a dull procedure, I'll pause you while I do that. And there we go, with the other boring bar magically in place. We're ready to cut the counterbore. We'll get back into our higher speeds here. So I'll set my dial at 0 and then just go up and touch. There we go. And then I'll lock the carriage in place. And there we have it. That's the first cut. Now I have to go 86 thousandths deep. There we go. So as you can see, that's a fairly shallow counterbore. Diameter is going to end up at 0.730, and right now I'm at 0.692, so another 38 thousandths. Just simply go back in here to my last setting, which was there, and 19 thousandths. I'll just use the Etch-a-Sketch method to get a little bit of a bevel here. It's fine. And we'll check our dimensions and see where we're at. There it goes. That's 730. And well, I'm actually at 0.087, so I'm a thousandth too deep. I'm not going to beat myself up too badly over that. And then the next thing is to just break the edge of the chamber a little here. Slow this down again. There we go. As usual, the final step is to polish the chamber with an old piece of Scotch-Brite. Give us a nice uniform look, and there it is. So there's the chamber finished, and now it's just a matter of cutting and crowning it and mounting it on the receiver, marking it, and then the final polish and bead blast, and this one will be done, and then some test firing. But so anyway. Nothing unusual about this, except for the little bit of an issue with the way the reamer was cutting, and so if you and on that, if you run into that, like I say, take the time to try and diagnose what the cause is, and but the thing is, if it's not cutting well, if you're having trouble getting a good finish on it, do something about it before it's too late. So if you have that issue popping up early on in the chambering job, then start working on it then, rather than trying to fix it after you've completed the chamber and it's subpar. Anyway, that's it. The chamber's done. I'm done, and after a whole bunch of editing, this will go on the site. So anyway, for now, this is Will Henry, out of the picture and out.